Spicy Toast Gaming here. It's the start of a new week, so it's time for a new set of weekly adventures. This week we have a 1.5, a 2, and a 2.5 star adventure. So pretty low stars this week. Up first for the 1.5 against Yasuo, we have Nautical Nuisance. So round star to refill all players' spell mana. So this is going to happen for both you and the enemy. This is obviously great for all of those very spell-based decks, especially Lux. I really like her with this one because you can make or cast your very large spells very quickly and then get all of your mana refilled. So she's a great benefit of this. But again, pretty much any champion in the game can really benefit from this, especially those that generate spells every round, such as like Garen. You're generating your 2-cost single combat in hand. So any champion that is just generating a spell every single round, so you can make sure you're benefiting from this, is very nice. And if you want to benefit from this, but you don't necessarily have a spell you're generating every round, you can also run the Grand General's counterplan on whatever your champion is. That way you're generating their champion spell, so you can try to also take part in this as well. So a lot of options here. Just try to make sure you're utilizing that spell mana every single round, if at all possible, because you don't need to be banking mana at all, because it's getting completely refilled every single round. Alright, for the 2-star up against Katarina, we have Ascension's Toll. So when you level a champion, all players discard their hand. So this is specifically you leveling your champion, so it's not when the enemy levels, but that's going to discard everyone's hand. With these type of modifiers that affect both you and the enemy, the key is to just always have more benefit from the enemy, or just have it hurt you less than the enemy. So whatever champion you're playing, you just need to try to play around this and make sure that you don't have a lot of important cards that are going to be discarded when you level. Now this can work out fine for you if you're playing someone like Jinx and you're already trying to discard your hand, so that when you level your champion, because your hand is empty, it doesn't really matter that your hand is getting discarded, but it's really affecting the enemy. Really though, this is something you can do on every champion. You just really have to be mindful and don't let this catch you by surprise. So just keep remembering that this is going to happen once you level up, and just make sure you don't have any important cards. Now that being said, you could just ignore this power and go for some champions where you don't actually need to focus on your champion or leveling them up at all. So for example, Lux, there's some very impactful builds that don't really require you putting your champion at all. Taliyah, if you ever leveled up, also not very difficult. You can very much win with Taliyah without actually playing Taliyah as a champion. So if you really don't want to play around this, there are some champions you can play that just won't level up at all, so you don't have to worry about your hand getting discarded. As far as the other power, round end, if the foe has 3 units, grant them 1/1. You really just want to be sure you're killing the enemy units as much as possible, just so they're not getting this scaling buff. So any removal type decks, such as like Jhin, Annie, Veigar, Garen, Aatrox, if you go with your champion spell and get a bunch of strikes off. Aatrox would actually be kind of a perfect candidate here because he only levels up when you play a specific spell. So you can make sure you're only leveling up when you actually want to level up. And then Aatrox, especially if you go for Grand General's counterplan, can have a massive amount of removal, just taking out enemy units and also scaling up, especially if you throw a Berserker's Buckle on. So Aatrox might actually be the perfect champion for these modifiers. Next up for the 2.5 up against Viktor, we have Hemorrhage, but it's a bit different than the normal Hemorrhage. So right now, when any player's units die, deal 1 to their Nexus. Normally Hemorrhage is that at the end of the round, the enemy deals 1 damage to your Nexus for every unit they have. But for here, it's when that unit dies, you're dealing 1 to their Nexus. Now this can also affect you, so you just want to make sure you're playing with a champion that doesn't have units dying. So definitely stay away from like Misfortune, Gwen, Kindred. You just don't want any decks that revolve around having your own units die, Thresh. So decks where you're trying to keep your units alive and scale up throughout the entire course of a game. So like Garen, Kayn, Tahm Kench, any sort of scaling deck, Leona would be pretty solid here. We also have fan favorite, so round start, give the foe's strongest unit 2 power and overwhelm this round. So you're just making things a little bit harder on you. This is definitely a power to be aware of, and you probably again want to go for some solid removal just so you can kill enemy units so that you don't have to deal with them having this buff on them, but also whenever you kill their units, they're going to just take extra damage. So this could be a pretty fun time to just focus solely on killing the enemy units, and by doing that, you're actually killing their Nexus. So again, similar to the last one, going for a removal focus deck. So like Annie, Jhin, Vhagar, Garen, potentially Aatrox with some builds would all be very solid here. There is also the Vicious Enemy, making everything a little bit harder. So even though this is just a 2.5 star, with that Vicious Enemy, it will still be fairly difficult. Overall though, an interesting week. Doesn't seem to be too bad. And it's cool that we're seeing some modifiers that I don't think we've ever seen before, at least not in this way. Like Hemorrhage normally isn't like this, so kind of interesting and should be fun to play around. Definitely let me know in the comments down below though what you're expecting. Also, since we're getting a lot of new stuff this week, you might want to hold off on completing these adventures until after the new update drops. Alright, that's it for me. I hope you all have a great day and a great start to your week.